may have some other friends joining us. So thank you all so much for jumping in today about rubrics. Have any of you all used rubrics in Canvas? Great. For those who have, you can help share any helpful tips and hints and stuff that may have been helpful for you. So we are going to just dig into a little bit. These are the norms. If you've been to a CTL session, that we typically have these norms, and especially being able to think about, new habits and new things and how we can apply those. And we like it, if you have your video camera on, because we like seeing people. We miss seeing people, and a lot of people in person. So it's a time for us to be able to get to see you, but understand if you need to turn off your video camera, especially some people eat lunch during this time and don't like to be on camera to do that. And this is informal. So if you have a question, feel free to stop and ask that question as we go through, or ask, hey, can you do that again? I will send you all this recording along with some additional resources that we'll have at the end as well. So our agenda today, we're going to be looking at why use rubrics, the benefits of using rubrics, looking at rubrics in Canvas, some best practices that we have come across, and we're actually going to go in and create a rubric in Canvas today. I will give a caveat that there are all kinds of different types of rubrics that you can apply to in your classes. And so if there's something specific for your class that you want a thinking partner to kind of go over with you, like shoot us an email at ctl@lipscomb.edu, and we're more than happy to support you in that. Every class is totally different. And so it's really nice to be able to kind of sit down and partner as you think through what a rubric may look like for your class. So we always like to start with the why, and have, with us in the CTL, we like to have our evidence to support our reasoning for doing things. And so, one of the things for us, and something that you're going to be hearing more about later on that we are building out, are quality standards. And especially when it comes to online hybrid, utilizing, something like Canvas to support your classes. And this is actually one of the standards that we have in our Oscar rubric, which we are going to be adopting, and we've kind of made some tweaks for Lipscomb, is that, that you have that criteria for assessments in your Canvas course available for students. And so we'll be talking more about that. So that's a little more to come to kind of tease you all on that. And then, looking at just some research study, this one by Alakai and Schumann about motivated learning, by being able to look at that and guiding the achievement of students. And, that's always really nice when they're motivated to kind of strive for that proficiency in a course. Okay. Wolf and Goodwin was taking a look at this, and I really liked kind of the research summary on this one about, making it clear, guiding the design, and we'll talk a little bit more about normalizing, and then those guidelines. And then this one from Washington University, this was really cool. They had developed a critical thinking project with a specific rubric, and they found that 92% of their students demonstrated writing proficiency, while they were also demonstrating low critical thinking skills. So they developed this rubric to really assess these higher order intellectual skills when it comes to critical thinking, and seeing the results, because the students, from the pre-rubric performance to after, because the students knew what the expectations were, which is something that we want for all of our students to be able to succeed in our classes. Some specific benefits for students, having those clear expectations. I like to think of a rubric as a roadmap. I know that as a student myself, I loved having rubrics because I am the type, I want to strive for an A. I want to do my best work and strive for excellence. And so it provides a roadmap of those expectations of where you're going, and those connections. It also provides that timely, meaningful feedback, and that's something, and for those of you in education who's familiar with like the team rubric, there's a difference between praise and feedback. And we'll be doing some more things around feedback, another teaser for you all as well. But there you can give, because you have those clear expectations, you can give some very specific feedback, and if they have the evidence to support where they are on the rubric. And then peer evaluation. If you have students kind of evaluating each other, having a rubric is really good. Another good support for students to be able to utilize when they do peer evaluations. For instructors, love rubrics because it's, makes that grading more consistent. It's faster, it's easier, and especially, and we'll talk about this in Canvas because you can access these submissions in SpeedGrader, supports authentic assessment. So being able to kind of look at different types of assessments you may use in your class, having a rubric with those clear guidelines really supports being able to think through the types of assessments you provide. Helps pinpoint problem areas. This is a really good point for faculty to think through. Like if you are consistently seeing that all students are scoring low in a specific rubric, what are some things that you might be able to do to support students in your class? Or there's some tweaks that may need to be made. I know for Elaine and accreditation for the continuous improvement process, this is, you have a key assignment, and there's, the specific places in the rubric where you identify some, students are scoring lower here. It may be because of this. Here are some supports we're going to put into place to address this. So being able to that, and then promoting higher order thinking as well. So just a little bit about rubrics in Canvas. So you can add rubrics to assignments, quizzes, and discussions. Now, I use rubrics for assignments and discussions. For quizzes, it's not for the actual grading, but it is, you can add it into a quiz for students to be able to kind of see some of the guidelines that you're using for like grading essays and stuff. So it's a different thing. So I did some research on this because I'm like, how does this work in quizzes? Because I had never used it in quizzes. So I had to do a little bit of digging in myself. And I'm like, okay, I could see, but I would probably myself just put an image of, or, a copy of the rubric in my instructions and not really attach it. So my main two areas would probably be assignments and discussions that I use it. You can also create a rubric once, and then you can copy it and reuse it in a course. So it takes some initial setup to create, and to copy and paste some things over. But once you have it in there, it's fabulous because then you can use it. And then if you're in a course, another course, and you're like, oh, I know that I have a writing rubric that I've already built out, I can then bring it in. And if I need to make some edits or tweaks to that particular rubric, I can. For example, I teach some classes for College of Ed. They have a College of Ed writing rubric that is standard. Well, I wanted to use it for my leadership class that I teach, and also for my Lipscomb experience. But there were a few tweaks because Lipscomb experience, like APA formatting, I opened it up to APA or MLA, depending on if they had, because if they're in University Write, they have MLA. So I'm able to take one rubric and make some tweaks right in there, which is great. Quick and easy to set up. We'll do that today. And then it's great to use it in SpeedGrader to grade. And then a really good thing is that you can set it up where you're using it for just kind of feedback purposes, or you can use it for both feedback and that numerical grading. So depending on how you set up the rubric in Canvas, you can just use it for a feedback purpose, or you can also set it up where you have that feedback, but also doing that numerical grading as well. Let's talk about some best practices. So best practice number 1, don't create your rubric directly into Canvas. There is not an autosave button. Trust us on this one, okay? My husband, I literally last week, I think it was last week, I came in and told Julia, it's like, my husband woke me up at 3:30 in the morning because he's a night owl, and he was building a rubric directly in Canvas, and he lost it. And he had spent like 4 hours working on this rubric. And I was like, it may help your marriage, if needed, because and I was like, why are you creating it directly in Canvas? I have told you time and time again, it doesn't autosave. So maybe next time he might listen. I don't know. But anyway, if you have it either in a Word document or an Excel, depending on which mode you like to create it, don't create it in directly in Canvas. So once again, plan your rubric in another document, copy and paste it into Canvas.
Hope, can I add something to that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the other thing is, a lot of times your students will want to see the rubric like not from a Canvas screen, because sometimes the Canvas rubric, it does an auto adjust thing, and the columns don't always line up with the rubric. And so sometimes students, just to be able to see it better, might appreciate like a PDF version of the rubric that they can download and look at that way. The rubric, and I apologize if you're getting to this, Hope, but the rubric is very, very helpful for the grading aspect and the feedback aspect in there. But as far as the students being able to see, it's better if they can have something they can download. And that just makes it more user-friendly for them.
Yeah. And it's great too. I know some faculty, they have a PDF copy of a rubric that they have students kind of self-assess themselves when they submit the assessment, or whatever the assignment is as well. As another support for students, of them having them to kind of self-assess, because that can provide some really good feedback opportunities as well for you as an instructor. So thanks, Julia. Give yourself some grace the first time you use a rubric. You can sometimes tell, like, that's, they're not really meeting this proficiency level that I thought that I had made clear. And this is where used language students will understand while constructing a rubric. Don't use jargon if you've not used it, the language with students. But you sometimes have to tweak rubrics. I found this when working with Lipscomb Online and their competency-based program, that I had a history instructor reach out to me, and he was like, and this is where, like, you can identify some problem areas. He's like, I think I need to change this particular criteria on this rubric, because this is what I was thinking about, but this is what I'm seeing that's all the students are submitting. So I'm able to make those tweaks and changes. All right, another best practice, don't create it directly into Canvas. Trust me, you don't want to go there, okay? Don't create it in Canvas. All right, give the rubric to students when the assignment's made, not at the end. So like Julia's talking about, being able to provide it for them so that way they can have a copy of it. They can kind of see those expectations. A point we'll make is like the way the lines work in Canvas, it annoys me to no end, because it does not always line up every row and column, and it looks funky. So being able to, have that, because it is a roadmap and guidelines for that particular assignment that you're doing. Have students contribute to the rubric generation. If there are some things that you're building with, students, have them, provide, and then I love having students provide feedback. This is where when, you're providing feedback back to them, have an open conversation of, about the rubric. I've been able to make some tweaks and changes just based on, having a quick open conversation with students as they've provided some feedback as well. And then our big best practice, don't create it directly. They say if a professor repeats something over and over again, like it's supposed to be pretty important. So yeah, so don't create it in there. So let's go and explore a little bit in Canvas. I've moved you all, so let's see if I can get to it. Okay. So we're going to start with just, creating a rubric. And I know some of you have already used it. And if you all have any best practices that you all want to share that feel free to jump in as well. So I always kind of build my assignment first. And then once you build your assignment, you'll see the little plus rubric at the bottom. And this is where you're able to build out that rubric. So you can go into find a rubric and you'll see like this is where I'm able to see some of the courses. And I could kind of look at what the rubric was. If I wanted to adapt a rubric and bring it in, I can definitely do that there under the find a rubric. But let's just create, this will be our rubric. There we go. And you can see that you have criteria, ratings, and the number of points. So, I made this particular assignment worth 100 points. So I'm going to, need mine to end up to be 100 at the end. And I'm actually going to just use this as, I've got a template I will share with you all as well. But I'm just going to create this with, and you can see that I have my proficiency or my levels, my across the top, my ratings and where they are, and then I have the criteria down the left hand side. So since I have 4 particular areas, I'm going to move this just a second. There we go. I'm going to need to add. I'm just going to keep that there. Oh. It's going to make me update here. Okay. And you'll see that they already had some in there. So you just click on there and you can change where it's unsatisfactory. Yes. Like I said, it takes a little bit of time. The first time that you build a rubric. Right. And I know for a fact that I'm going to have 5 criteria. So I'm going to make this one worth 5. I'm going to make this one worth 4. Just to so you'll figure that out just for this today. We're just going to do this, here we go. And then for my specific criteria, you can see that I have just the word ideas here. Some of the rubrics I use, I have some more specific things under it, or I might have the accreditation standards under it that goes with it. So I'm going to copy that here. And this is where you can put a longer description. And then I need to add. So I'm going to add a criterion here. And it's a new criterion. And I just organization. I'm not gonna do this whole one. And you can see that once again, there, I do have to build out each of those. And let's just do, oops, a new criterion. We'll do one more. Just copy and paste it, and then I'll show you as we're building this. This is the most tedious part of the whole thing. And then I'll just, just leave that for there. And then whenever I want to put in what exactly is exemplary, like right here, I'm going to copy and paste this. See why you don't want to do it directly into Canvas and type all of this stuff and then lose it because there is no auto save. Trust me, it's a pain. Just copy and paste. Don't y'all love watching me copy and paste? This is great. Okay. So, so I can build out, well, okay, this is only worth 15 points. Well, I know that, I've got 5 areas. This is really going to be like for me, 20 points. And then I'm going to put like 16. 16 minus 12. I'm just randomly, let's put 8. Here. And so you can see it's worth 20 points, but I like Canvas because it builds out the number of points. So you should be able to match the number of points. And this is really good too, if you are adapting a rubric. So like I may use this writing rubric for a 100-point assignment, but I also may use it for a 50-point assignment in another class because the points differ. I can just hit the little pencil, that's what it is, and be able to click on it and add it. You can also select where you can write free form and it will like just leave it kind of open. If you have this type of rubric, I don't recommend that. If it's something where you are doing it just for feedback, this is where you can remove the points from the rubric. Outcomes, this particular area is for when you are using Canvas outcomes and connecting it to a mastery grade book. I don't think any of you all are using that. That's something like our School of Nursing is using that for their kind of accreditation process. But this is the big one. Use this rubric for assignment grading. You will need to select that in order to, if you're using it for a grade in the grade book. The other thing with this is if you, because once you have it in a course and you copy and paste a course over, it will be there, but you need to go in to that specific assignment and select that. So if you ever get to the point where you're like, well, I'm marking it, but it's not showing the actual grade in the box above, just come down to the rubric. There will be a little edit button, a little pencil for you to edit. I'll show you that on an actual assignment in just a minute, and just go in there and select that, use this rubric for assignment grading. I do it all the time, like where I totally forget to go in there myself. And then I'm like, oh, my grade's not showing up. I forgot to select that. So I'm just going to go ahead. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll just leave that for now. So you can see, and you'll see like these lines don't match up, which is why having a PDF copy is really good. And it's great for you to kind of, I like to have a PDF copy. Even though I love technology, I still like to print out and have a copy of it right beside of me as well as I'm grading as well. So I am now, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but can I add in something real quick on
Yes.
that? So if you're someone, and I've run across this with several professors on campus, that they want to use a rubric to indicate what do they consider quality, right? So they can indicate that proficient level, but then they want to assign the grade separately from the rubric. So if that's what you're wanting to do, don't check that thing. Don't check the one that says use for assignment grading. So just know that that's a really important setting that she was talking about there.
Thanks, Julia. Yeah, so you can see like my assignment is now set up here. And this would be like, if I realize I didn't have that setting, then this is what you would see at the bottom where you go in and you can edit, and you can then go in there and update it at that point. Okay, we'll just leave different. And let me show you for discussions, if you want to use one for discussions, if you're like, and giving students a rubric for their discussion post, which, some people have discussion board kind of rubrics as well. What you would do is create your discussion board, and then you would go in, hit the, I call it the snowman with the 3 dots, and then over here, add the rubric here. And this is where you can find a rubric if you already have one in there, or you can build a rubric in here as well. Same setting. So it's a little different in that if you go in and you see that discussion board and you don't see the little plus rubric at the bottom, always check the snowman, because that's where things like to hide sometimes in Canvas. And there it is where you can add the rubric in there. So for quizzes, if you are interested in doing that particular option, I did find that I think it's if you hit the little snowman, let's see, not actually. Yeah, if you're in there, maybe not. I have to, I looked it up on Canvas on the community forum. Julie, if you've got a second to kind of look, because I can't find it now, but it's not. Yeah, I thought it was. You can tell I don't use that feature at all because I can't remember. And I'm like, I'm probably not going to use it. So let's take a look at grading when you have that rubric for grading. So I'm going to go into this example assignment that I had my faculty do, and you can see there was a writing rubric. See, there are the like standards there. It's basically the same rubric there. I just play around and add some things. So I'm going to go into Speed Grader, and we'll find Miss Debbie Hoggett since she's on board now. And so I had just to add faculty last March, just upload something, into Canvas for me as my model students. And you can see that I can go right in, hit view rubric here. And this is where all you have to do is like, oh, let's say that Debbie's like missing something there, and she didn't do that. I love this piece where you can just click on it and identify the specific areas, and then utilizing, and I have it to use, let's see, save it. At the bottom, you'll hit save. And this is where the box will, if you have the little check mark, you want to use it in grading, it'll show up here. If you don't have it, it'll be completely blank here. And then you can go down here and put the specific feedback. And this is why I really like using rubrics, because then I can say, Debbie, you did a great job of making sure that you had supporting details to support the topic that you submitted. Or I noticed that you didn't have your citations correctly in APA formatting. Check the manual specifically about this, so you can use this comment box to provide some feedback there as well. All right, Julie, did you find that for the quizzes? Okay.
Yeah, so it's not real intuitive. So,
no, see.
So if you go to where your quizzes are listed,
mm-hmm.
And then click on the name of a quiz. It doesn't matter if it's new or classic.
Okay.
And instead of going to edit, go to the snowman.
Mm-hmm.
And it says show rubric. If you don't have a rubric associated with it, that gives you the option to add one.
Oh, there it is, right there.
Mm-hmm.
It was at the top. I just totally missed it. Yeah. Okay, so there you go. If you wanted like to put, especially if you have like maybe an essay question that you're using like some type of rubric in, for those who have accreditation standards, you might like have a specific rubric that you can kind of put in there. But it doesn't do it for the specific questions, which is why I probably would just put kind of the rubric up here in the kind of the instructions for myself. I would probably put a PDF in there so that way students kind of know there. Questions?
Is there a way to fix those lines for those of us who just can't stand?
So Julia, let's add this to our feature requests because we're
Yes.
for our Canvas rep, the fixing the line. Yes, because I'm very OCD with that kind of stuff and it drives me crazy. And I'm like, ugh. And then the other thing would be the autosave feature. Like even if you are copying and pasting and something, like the Wi-Fi gets spotty on campus or something like that, and you lose something. I would love to. We have autosave feature on some other places in Canvas. It would be nice to have that as well. But no, I wish, Debbie.
Okay, just wondering.
Yeah, that would be one of my number one.
Got it. So one of the things I wanted to mention is that when you go to the rubrics link in your course menu over on the left, then right there you can add your rubric. So if you want to just go ahead and add your rubrics in, and then as you're creating the assignments, associate the rubric with that assignment, you can do that. And you would just, like Hope showed you before with the find rubric. And when you go to that find rubric feature, it shows you the rubrics in the courses you're on. So like for Hope's, it showed like everybody, because she's a Canvas admin, it only shows you yours.
And this is a newer feature that like they just added this rubrics thing, I think last summer. So this is a great new feature that I, would have loved to have had, just so I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to block some time and go ahead and build my rubrics all at once that I know that I'm going to use for the class and just put it in there. Yeah. Other questions?
So the basic advantage of using the Canvas rubric, generally what I've been doing up to this point is just making my own little, PDF rubric, and I put it in the syllabus and I put it in the assignment Dropbox so they can see that. But the real advantage is that you can use it in grading. You can click on it while you're grading. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And it is really nice because then, it'll mark that specific indicator for each criteria. And then you can, put that feedback in there as well on that. And then, and especially, if you're doing some things where maybe they're just submitting it and they just need feedback, it's not the final submission. I like using it in there as well. And it's kind of I love thinking of Canvas as my repository for all things for my class. So I have documentation, like, I try to stay away from my email with my classes and try to keep it as much as in Canvas, to like, if there was ever I always, coming from K through 12, if there was ever a student appeal and they're like, I never heard from Dr. Nordstrom at all. Really? Well, here, and I didn't know what was expected of me at all, and I'm like, oh, well, let's just take some screenshots of this to provide as a support document. Not that, luckily I've not had a great appeal at this point, but I just tend to go back to the K through 12 document, and utilizing Canvas to hold all of that for me instead of trying to search through all my email and find it as well. So yeah, so I liked it. I like it for that aspect, Debbie, of having it there. Mm-hmm.
Robin, I think you mentioned at the beginning that you've used this before, the rubrics in Canvas. So what tips would you give folks?
I have in one of my courses only, and it was a course that was shared with me by another professor, so I didn't have to build the rubric. It was already there for me, which was nice. And we used it simply for feedback, not grading, and really appreciated that feature, being able to use that structure to provide very specific feedback to candidates. And so I really appreciated that aspect of it, but I was a little uncertain about how to start from scratch. And so appreciate this guidance.
Good. Glad we can help with that.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's the number one tip, Robin?
Don't build it in Canvas.
She's got an A+ today, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Other questions? I think, and part of like, if you play around in your Canvas sandbox as well, like, especially if you're like really thinking through different types of rubrics, and like, we could spend a whole 3 hours talking about different types of rubrics out there, and which is what we didn't want to do on this one. And Julie and I were like, we really want to, we really love being able to partner with faculty as they think about, the guidelines for assignments and what type of rubric and what that criteria and indicators and so forth may look like for your particular course. And like I said, I've created a template for those of you who've never used a rubric before that I will share with you all, that you can copy and paste just as a starter, as something to consider. Yeah. And it's basically just a table with some things that you can copy and paste. I really like having 4 categories myself when thinking through the different levels, and really like what is the and I always start with what is the proficient level, and then build from there, and usually that unsatisfactory is like you're just way off, which luckily most of the time I don't have as many in that category because of having the exemplary and emerging columns as well.
Yeah, that's exactly going to be my tip. Hope would start with proficient, because proficient is basically, they need to be able to do X, right? And then exemplary is what would constitute going a little above and beyond, and then you can go easily to the emerging and unsatisfactory from there. So I find that easier as well.
Yeah, so like this is them creating that poster, and they meet all the thing, and then they've added like the bedazzle the poster and went above and beyond, right? Oh, just don't put glitter on there. That would be unsatisfactory for me. So glitter. And this is something like that I have learned, especially when working with the competency-based program and all my years of studying education. I don't ever remember having any specific sessions on creating rubrics and what really how to do that, and really to look at what is competency in these specific areas. And so there are some, lots of example rubrics out there that you can adapt to meet the needs. So, search our wonderful World Wide Web for that as well. Yeah. So as we are wrapping up, and like I said, if you all have questions about rubrics, we love rubrics, so we love and thinking through your course. Feel free to reach out. But once again, best practice, don't forget, if you're using it for assignment grading, that little check mark is going to be really, really important for you. And then, whoops, did I have? Okay, yeah. If you need help, reach out to us. And then final thoughts today: don't create your rubric directly into Canvas. Go ahead and save it. So
in the chat, I put a link to a rubric creation tool. It is something that I've used all the time when I was in K-12. You may find that it's not any better for you than just simply using Hope's template, but there are those kind of tools like that out there, and just to make you aware.
I love Ruby Star.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. If you don't have any other questions, thanks for jumping on today as we get to dig in a little bit deeper on these specific Canvas areas. And if there's ever a feature that you're like, hey, like I've, used this a little bit, or I want to know more about it, let us know. Because we'll, develop a session with that in mind as we're building out our Canvas resources. Canvas will not be going away post-pandemic, and being able to see and utilize things in Canvas that a lot of people didn't use before. So if you have some, time and space to really think through how to level up your courses using Canvas, let's do it. So
Thank you.
Oh,
yes.
Thank you, Hope and Julia.
Yes.